Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. Today we are in our studios and we have the esteemed guest in our studio. Her name is Stephanie Cadieux and she is a member of Legislative Assembly. So she's an MLA and used to be a minister as well. And she has graciously agreed to give us an interview. Welcome to our station. How are you doing?
Thank you. Very glad to be here, Shishma.
So, why did you want to become a politician?
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
It just happened?
It just kind of happened, yeah. I had been interested in politics, but only as a voter.
Right.
I was doing a lot of work in the nonprofit sector, interacting with government at all levels. Mm-hmm. And found it fascinating and frustrating dealing with government.
Yes.
And ultimately, I think I just sort of realized that if I wanted to make change, I probably had to be on the inside. But I really didn't think about that in terms of being a politician until I was asked to run. And then I thought, well, I guess I have to.
When you look at things around you, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, in your own position, you are on a wheelchair. I'll come to that in a minute. Did you have to be a volunteer before they could even ask you to run for the position? No.
No. I think I had perhaps captured the attention of some politicians through the work I was doing.
Right.
I think they probably thought I was a little bold, a little difficult, maybe.
Good qualities to be
perhaps,
a politician.
And anyway, I was asked to consider running for the party, and
that was 2009.
That was about 2007-8
right.
when I was asked. Yeah.
And so 2009 was the very first time that you got elected from Surrey. So have you lived in Surrey all your life?
No. When I was a really little one, my family lived in White Rock. But then we moved up into the interior to Lillooet, and I grew up in Lillooet, in the small town.
And how was that?
Fantastic. Great community to grow up in, be a child in.
So when you were born, did you have a problem with your hands? Because at the moment I can see it's very difficult for you.
No.
So what happened?
I was injured in a car crash when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And I broke my neck, and so I'm an incomplete quadriplegic. So I have some movement below my level of injury in my neck, which is C5, which is right about where you bend your neck. Mm-hmm. So I'm lucky to have some mobility, but certainly not functional. So I use the wheelchair for mobility all the time.
Let me take you back to that time. Mm-hmm. How was it for you? It must have been, as an 18-year-old, not to be able to do what you were able to do till then.
Terrifying. But it's interesting how the mind and body cope. You know, you do focus on the fact that you're alive, and that's a good thing. And that's something my family instilled in me as well, I think. It's the way my parents are, that you look at the positives, you look at the good things, and you deal with things and you move on, go forward. So while there was a long process in the hospital, I was in the hospital for 3 months and then in rehab for 6, and then another 3 as an outpatient.
Right.
So I spent a year sort of getting my life
together
back
again,
from that perspective. And then another number of years getting stronger and learning to live with a disability and relearn a lot of how to live. It was a difficult process. No doubt there is a grieving process that you have to go through. There are frustrating times, anger, and also a lot of humor to get through it all.
You need all that, I guess.
You do, yeah.
So while you were going through all the upheaval, did you find that the attitude of people changed?
Yes.
Good way, bad way?
Both.
Both, eh?
I think because I was young perhaps that was in some ways a blessing, because I had the opportunity to still build my life, and the people around me were still getting to know me. But different people have very different reactions to tragedy and to disability. And certainly you learn who your friends are very quickly. I had one friend who, we were fairly new friends.
Yes.
But very quickly showed her the stuff she was made of.
True color.
She would come over from Victoria from university every Saturday and bring me a treat from the bakery and visit, and then go home and study again. She did it every week for that entire time I was in the hospital.
Wow.
Those people who, you know, will be with you through thick and thin, still are.
Yeah,
And,
of course.
and others fall away.
Yeah.
They are uncomfortable, don't want to deal with tough things, don't want to deal with pain, perhaps. So yeah, it's interesting, and certainly I have seen over that time too how others, strangers, react to disability, and to me as a person with a disability, and how that has changed somewhat over time, for the better, I would say, but also how who I am and how I present myself affects how people react.
It certainly does, and I think in the past, since you became disabled, from that time to now, in your field, in the field of disability, a lot of things have been accomplished. Life is hopefully a little easier for people. I mean, I do remember there weren't that many facilities for people who were in a wheelchair. And the attitude of people towards people in a wheelchair was quite different.
Yeah.
Have you seen that change in front of your eyes?
Yes, I would say I have to some degree. And I've seen where it hasn't changed and where we need to go further.
I want to talk about that a little bit, but let's take a short commercial break. Get the program paid for.
Absolutely.
And then we'll be right back with Stephanie Cadieux, who is our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is MLA Stephanie Cadieux, and we were talking about disability. I don't want to concentrate on that, but I do want to talk about it because you made a point, and things have changed and things haven't. So twofold question. To bring change, is it the community that should be number one, or the government that should be number one?
I think the community has done their piece, largely. And by that I mean, I think that most people in our society, at least in British Columbia, and I can't say that everywhere in the world, but certainly here, largely has accepted that people with disabilities are people, and that we all should be included and have the opportunity to participate, whether that be in work or in school or in the community at events, and that we don't need to be hidden or protected.
Protected,
Right?
Yeah.
So I think largely our ideas have evolved as a society, in most cases, one-on-one with people. But I always hoped that it was society that needed to do that work.
Right.
That you know, we needed to encourage people and teach people and let people learn and experience. And I think that's still very true. It has to happen through experience. But government has a role. Sometimes what happens is we think we know what we need to do. We think we know what accessible means. We think we know what inclusion means and how to do that. And then we make mistakes. So time and time again, I run into mistakes in public spaces, in how we're building or not building things that work for people.
Right.
We're not building housing that works for people. We're not building housing that allows a child with a disability to attend a birthday party at a friend's. We aren't building housing that allows a grandmother who uses a walker to safely visit family. That's a problem. And we don't understand it until we need it, and then it's too late. So I think government does have a role to play. I think government has a bigger role to play in setting standards that everybody must build to and act to when it comes to hiring, for example, when it comes to understanding that people with disabilities can do all sorts of work, and they're not all the same, and that they are their best expert in how to make that work.
That's true.
Yeah.
So when you were in the government, would you spearhead? Would you talk about that? Did you get an opportunity to do any of that?
Some of it.
Yeah.
Not enough.
No.
Yes, I certainly raised the issues and talked about them a lot, and pushed where I could. The challenge of when you're in government is also there are so many things to do. What priorities rise to the top? And certainly I didn't have success in making as many changes as I would have liked to see. I was able to make some, specifically around supports for people with disabilities who happen to require support financially from government on income assistance and those programs. And when I was there, I set some things in motion and made some changes to our programs in British Columbia that mean we still lead the country in a lot of those areas. There's much more to do. I'm proud of what I accomplished, but there's much more to do, and I would have liked to see success in some other areas that I didn't see success on. But as a private member, I'm now able to raise those in a different way. When I was in government, I also had the responsibility of a ministry, and that ministry was difficult and all-encompassing. And all-encompassing, which means that my priority had to be the work for that ministry and not my personal agenda. The things that mattered to me personally, I could ensure were being seen through that ministry's eyes, but not necessarily all of the other areas of government. I had to rely on other people to do that too.
A lot of interesting points that you've brought up, and I think that makes a lot of sense for people who go through disability and are different, as you mentioned, different kinds of disabilities, right? And yes, you're right. At the last stage of my mom's life, it was difficult for her to walk. So there were times that she would say, I'm not going to anybody's place because, you know, to go down 14, 15 stairs and then climb another 14, 15 stairs to go to somebody's house is not possible. And
it's isolating for people. And it doesn't allow us to fully embrace the richness of our culture and our people if we exclude people. But all of the people that are affected have the right and the need to have the opportunity to be a part of our society fully. And we still have work to do to make sure that happens.
And I do see that within a society, people with no matter what kind of disability they have, you mentioned physical, and then there are other kinds of disabilities, and they are contributing members of the community.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
I want to take you to your personal life, growing up as a child in Lillooet. But let's take a short break and come back to that.
Sure.
Stephanie Cadieux is our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Stephanie Cadieux is our Woman in Focus today. So born in White Rock, and you lived in Lillooet. Lillooet sounds like such a beautiful word and a city or a small town.
Small town.
Small town. How was it? How many friends did you have there?
Lots of friends. A tiny little town, really.
Yes.
Mile zero on the Gold Rush Trail.
Wow.
So really, Lillooet came into its own during the Gold Rush and was a big part of that at the turn of the century. But it was a great town to grow up in. You know, we had so much freedom as children to be outside and explore. And my parents made sure we experienced nature and the lakes and all of the opportunities. And it was a kind town.
Yeah.
You know, people in small towns are very caring, and there is a real sense of community, and lots of you have to make your own fun in small towns. So lots of community festivals and all that sort of thing, and really good memories about growing up in a small town.
So as a child, what pecking order are you in a family?
I'm the oldest. I have one sister.
A sister
one
younger to you?
sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
She was the troublemaker.
Oh no, of course not.
Of course.
So were you in a position to sort of bully her in any way?
No, probably. I'm a decision maker. She bought me a sweatshirt for my birthday last year. It says, "I'm not bossy. I have good leadership skills." But I'm sure when I was a child, I was just bossy. Although I do remember when she held her own, but at one point we were having an argument and she threw a walnut at me and it hit me in the eye.
Oh my.
Yeah, so you know, she held her own for sure.
Well, it's great to have siblings that are as strong as you are, and sort of can bring you back to your position as well. After you finished your high school, is an opportunity for you to go to university?
Actually, my family moved back to the Lower Mainland when I was in grade 10. So I made that transition in the middle of high school from a really small high school to a very large high school. We went from a school of 300 children or youth to a high school of over 1,200 kids.
Wow. How was that?
That was an experience at 15. Friends had already, you know, everybody was established in their group, so having to sort of find my way in a new school was interesting, but it went really well. And yes, when I finished school, I had the opportunity to move on to university and did that. I started out at SFU, and then my accident occurred in the second semester of university, which took me out for a year.
Yes.
And then I returned back the year.
You went back?
Went right back as soon as I was out of the hospital,
And so during all this period, when you had the accident and all that, and you then started getting on the wheelchair, how difficult was it to learn to maneuver this huge, big thing?
Initially, it felt overwhelming, but very quickly you figure it out. They teach you all sorts of tricks and things.
Right.
And for me, I pretty strong-willed, and very quickly told my therapist what I was going to learn and what I wasn't going to learn, and what I was interested in learning and what I wasn't interested in learning. And they wanted me to learn how to go up and down stairs in my wheelchair. I'm like, really? There are elevators for that? I'm not doing that. What is really important to me is I need to learn how to get my wheelchair in and out of a car because I need to go places. Right. So I sort of, at that point in my recovery, directed how I was going to figure things out, and learned a lot more when I was on my own at home once I got out of the rehab center.
So how was it meeting people and finding a life partner? Was that easy? Was that difficult?
Again, I think I fretted about that over the first couple of years. Worried about that, thought this would make it difficult, and you know, would I still be appealing to a man or what have you? And I learned that wasn't an issue.
No.
There are plenty of men that could see past the chair, and certainly my husband was one of them. And we met the same way most people do, just out and about. Yeah.
And how long has it been since you guys have been together?
We met when I was 22, so and we've been together ever since, so it's quite a while now.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. That's very nice. When you look at your life and you look at what you've achieved, where do you see yourself going? You're very young, you've got a lot of passion. You've got a lot of passion, and you've got a lot of, you know, determined vision. What do you see yourself doing in the next little while?
I don't know.
No?
Life has taken many turns. I didn't ever intend to be where I am. I am very proud and happy to be where I am. I am open to what comes next. I don't know what that is, but I will know it at the time. It will feel right. And I know that I will, no matter what that is, want to have impact. I won't be satisfied if I am not changing something.
I think you as a person are very impactful, you know, in every sense of the word.
That feels lovely. Thank you.
People look at you and what you have achieved. For young women, you are a role model, and it makes people like me feel very happy to be in your company, to talk to you. I wish you all the best in the years to come. So you'll continue being in politics?
Well,
so
it
far,
is what
so
I'm
good.
doing now.
So far, so good,
and
right?
I'm enjoying it, yes.
Well, in the last election, you got almost over 50% of the vote, right? And so there is a lot of love for you, and for whatever you are doing. People feel that you know, you are their voice. So I hope that the next election, whenever it happens, that you will get the same and more.
Well, thank you.
People.
I appreciate the kind words. I do what I can every day to have impact and to make things better. That's what I got into politics for. It doesn't mean I always agree with everyone or even with the people I sit with. But to make change, you have to be willing to look at all sides of an argument. And you have to be willing to listen and to change your views. If that's, you have to be open.
Well
and I think I have had an amazing opportunity to learn and grow through this experience, and I'm very thankful for it.
This is going to be the first program of 2020, a new decade.
Wow.
On Women in Focus. So
What an honor.
thank you for being our Woman in Focus today.
Thank you so much, Sushma.
Stephanie Cadieux has been our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.